So I'm supposed to be packing my bags right now for a 2-week coverage odyssey of racing at IMSA's Petit Le Mans and IndyCar season finale at the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. But unfortunately for me, one of the biggest stories of this IndyCar silly season broke, and one of the strongest cars in the field is suddenly, surprisingly, in play. And we also know who's taking over Oliver Askew's vacant seat at the number 7 Arrow McLaren SP car, and it's a Swede. Let's talk about it. And yes, Motorpsort.com broke this bombshell. Their link to their article will be in the description, that Felix Rosenqvist will leave the NTT Chip Ganassi Racing team, replacing Oliver Askew at the Arrow McLaren SP team. What a shocking revelation this is. I don't think anybody reasonably predicted that this was coming. Now, Felix Rosenqvist scored his first win of his IndyCar career this year at Road America, ironically enough, beating Pato O'Ward. O'Ward had dominated that race, and ironically enough, even further, Pato O'Ward announced that he has re-signed with McLaren today, and presumably, I would guess probably tomorrow or the day afterwards, that this will be confirmed. McLaren will have their full-time seats filled for next year. So there's still a bunch of cars in play for the silly season, and we're just going to have to talk about it because there's so many drivers suddenly that we need to talk about. Because as far as I'm aware, Chip Ganassi usually hires the driver who drives the number 10 car in his team. Now, there may be a bit of a question of whether or not NTT Data will come back as the sponsor for that team. And so I guess the question mark remains, is the number 10 car going to be a car racing for the championship next year? And if it's not, is it the Jimmy Johnson car? Are there only going to be 3 Ganassi cars next year, or are there only going to be 4? Or are there going to be 4? Only 3 or 4? This is certainly one thing that I don't think many of us expected. I think we all expected that Felix Rosenqvist and Marcus Ericsson would re-sign with Ganassi, and most of the big teams, we kind of already knew where they were headed. That is clearly not the case now. Chip... I'm making an assumption here, but Chip could theoretically choose whatever driver he wants for this car. And so that just throws every possibility out there, because maybe there's some drivers at the end of their contracts at other teams that might want to go give Chip Ganassi a call to potentially get into that number 10 car. And Felix Rosenqvist going to McLaren, what a power balance dynamic that's going to throw into the mix here. Because Rosenqvist has improved quite a bit, and I think if you would look at, or if you'd ask a few IndyCar pundits, I think they would tell you that 2 of the more impressive drivers in the last few years were O'Ward and Rosenqvist. And them being on the same team makes a whole lot of sense. It continues that the strategy that McLaren was trying this year with Askew and O'Ward going young, so they're going to continue that, developing young drivers, but I guess bringing Rosenqvist into the team while he is a young driver, he's very experienced and very fast. A lot of people are very high on him, so presumably, I honestly don't, this is going to be the weird thing, is that I don't know who's going to be the team leader there. Is it going to be O'Ward, or is it going to be Rosenqvist? Now, I think Rosenqvist brings a lot more experience. He brings that Ganassi experience into that team, but O'Ward has looked so strong. I think that's going to be quite an interesting teammate matchup at that team. These moves, extremely unexpected, put a bunch of cars now suddenly into play in this IndyCar silly season. The first one we need to talk about is the Jimmy Johnson car, the theoretical, hypothetical 4th Ganassi car. Now, Motorsport.com is reporting that as of right now, it's literally in the article about Felix Rosenqvist, that Jimmy Johnson would not do the ovals next year. And they're reporting that it would be Tony Kanaan. They're saying it's rumored to be Tony Kanaan. And honestly, Tony Kanaan makes a lot of sense, especially from the perspective of he wants an extra year for the fans. He wants a competitive car. He wants to race on the ovals. That's pretty much the perfect combination for Tony Kanaan. But if this isn't the fourth Ganassi car and you have a full budget, theoretically, at the number 10 car, and you don't want to go out and hire another driver, you could make the 10 car the Jimmy Johnson car. The only problem I have with that, and the thing that makes me question whether that will happen or not, is that I don't think Jimmy Johnson wants to run full-time. It doesn't, again, he's softening on the ovals, but every quote he has said seems like he wants to test this year, or 2021, I mean, and it sounds like maybe 2022 would be when he would consider running ovals. It doesn't seem like he's going to go full in on the ovals next year. Now, there's always the possibility he could, and I also just don't see the 10 car being a car that cannot go for the championship. I guess it could go for owner's points, theoretically, but for your sponsor, which is presumably NTT Data, I think you would want a driver in that car, especially, I guess Marcus Ericsson would, become the second Ganassi car. Maybe you number Ericsson's car the number 10, and maybe you number the third car the 48 and just keep 3 cars. Maybe you do something like that. Maybe that's the possibility. Maybe that's the strat, and just NTT Data goes away. I don't know. But if you can hire a driver, I mean, I mentioned this already in the video yesterday about Oliver Askew. Ganassi likes Oliver Askew. Mike Hull likes Oliver Askew. They tested him. I think there's a possibility that we could see a more or less a trade, even though that's definitely not how things seem to have gone down, between Askew and Rosenqvist at Ganassi. So this is just, and by the way, it seems like the quote from Askew's agent, whether it was a self-fulfilling prophecy or it was a prophecy just in general of the next man up, driver's always there to replace. You're telling me that this came out the day after Askew left Arrow McLaren SP and this hadn't been in the works before yesterday? Come on. Let's think about that. But the final piece here of the IndyCar silly season would be the third Arrow McLaren SP car, because we know that's a goal of Zach Brown to do that car, and now we know that there is going to be a second car full-time with a young driver next year, Felix Rosenqvist. So now you've got to think that Helio Castroneves is going to be the prime candidate there. We even heard yesterday, I think Motorsport.com was the ones that reported this, that Helio Castroneves is going to have his 2021 plans solidified within the next few weeks. Now, whether that's a full-time car at Arrow McLaren SP or a part-time car, maybe you bring in Jenson Button and Sergio Perez to fill out the schedule on some of the road courses, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you keep that strategy you were going with last year with the kind of the all-star car. I think Helio, if they choose to use him as the third Arrow McLaren SP driver, I think that would be one that is a smart choice, and he's extremely experienced, and I think he would certainly help Pato and Felix, particularly at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, I think if you go from a three-car, if you think about it as a three-car operation, especially at the Indianapolis 500, Award, Felix, and Helio, it makes a whole lot of sense. Man, what a crazy story this one is. This is one that I did not expect to be talking about, but here we are. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm leaving for Atlanta, Georgia tomorrow. I will have at the track coverage, first time since January, in the Rolex 24 of an IMSA race, the Petit Le Mans, one of my favorite races on the year. I can't wait to share with you guys my experience at that race. And then the week afterwards, I'll be in St. Petersburg, Florida, to finish that unfinished business from March. And I hope you'll enjoy my coverage from that as well. Exciting times. We're getting back to it. Fingers crossed. You never know. Seems like bad things happen every time I go on one of these trips. Hopefully, nothing bad happens this time. But I'll knock on wood. And hopefully you guys are knocking on wood too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe for more motorsports content, and I will see you in the next video which will probably be somewhere in Georgia.